person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head.
So, we continue our relatively short journey across the Fatal Frame series. The first one is a fantastic game with a few minor issues. This game just comes along and polishes it to a mere finish. This is generally the fan favorite, and mine too, so let's get to this. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly was released December 10th, 2003 in North America for the PS2. The director's cut for the Xbox came out next month on November 1st. It's also on the PSN. Now there was a remake of the game, but we won't worry about that for now. So being a second game in a series generally means there is some improvement. And would you look at that? The game is even better than the first. Most, if not all of the kinks found in the first are gone. It's fucking beautiful. Full of all kinds of control options that'll most likely fit your liking. No more getting caught on nothing. The run speed is still a bit slow, but feels a tad faster. I could also be making shit up. Tapping back does make you quick turn still, but the degree for when it actually triggers is much smaller now. No more accidental turnaround. Now you can switch film and lenses in real time. Not to sound ungrateful, but having the film cycle in one direction is kind of unintuitive. Maybe they should have mapped it to the D-pad, since no sick motherfuckers using the D-pad in camera mode. I don't, at least. They even added a feature to aid you in getting that fatal frame. You get a blinking light and a chime. The chime is really helpful. So, let's dig a bit deeper. Let's dissect this son bitch and talk about how it just skyrockets to my favorite. Man, this game is just so fucking rad. Go buy this game. Sorry, hype boner getting out of control. So the game features two new protagonists, the two sisters Mio and Mayu. Making us play as two young girls makes me feel that much more defenseless. All creepy pedo jokes from the last video aside.
What are you doing in here?
I really like the two new main characters. They're not annoying in any facet like some kid characters can be. Mio is very strong-willed, and both of them you can connect with. Not only that, these two 15-year-old girls are fucking braver than I am. Seriously, they're more courageous than most. Fuck. Like, the very first creepy thing that would have happened, I would have ditched the place. Well, Mayu is the weaker of the two. She doesn't come off as a nuisance.
Help!
God! Just shut the fuck up! They did a great job with the characters in this one, and by far my favorite of the series. We take control of Miu, and wild shenanigans ensue. First thing improved is opening up the scope of the game. Instead of a single, larger mansion, we're thrust into All God's village. Now this is what I'm talking about. The game takes place in an entire village lost in the woods. Jesus Christ. Nothing could be better than this. I fucking love urbex, and the idea of finding a lost village is nuts. Sorry. Hype bomb. So in the last review I stated that the backtracking was a bit much and the mansion a bit too small. Well now, the backtracking feels much less exhausting since there are always new areas to explore, an entire village and multiple buildings you can delve into. You could take it as a negative thing since shit's a lot more distant from each other, mixed with the slow running, but really I think it's pretty awesome. The village looks and feels so real. The visuals in general are improved a modest amount. Textures, lighting, character models all look noticeably better. Now, while the combat in the first is great, it is a bit slow. So the combat is pretty much the same as the last game, except how spirit power works. Previously, it was based more or less on time. The longer you had a ghost in your sights, the more power you built up until it maxed out. In this game, it's much more dependent on distance. To me, this is awesome since it no longer gives you much of an option to stand back and snipe at them. You gotta get up in that ghost shit and give it a reach around. This is what you want. I'm not sure if others like this change, seeing as they changed in the next game, but I think it makes combat that much more involved. My favorite change right away is the removal of the post-battle exercising. Waiting for each individual ghost to be absorbed was just so obnoxious, especially in sequential playthroughs. No more melodramatic animations of just them dying. They really ramped up how satisfying the combat is, while still remaining tactically de-emphasized. Fighting ghosts is still a very strategic ordeal, and it feels so great. The sounds are awesome. Instead of we get that distorted grumble sound is fucking great. When you get a fatal frame, it just sounds so fucking powerful. You can even get combos now. If your reflexes are up to the task, you can get multiple fatal frames in a row to do max damage. The combat is even deeper than last time. Now, film has a load time, which only happens when you either are taking a picture of a non-volatile ghost, or you miss. Missing a shot can easily fuck you, since you have to wait for the film to load, which makes missing a shot even more of a risk than just wasting the film. Crank the intensity up, boy! Plus, you face more ghosts in this one. I mean, in the first one, there were like maybe 3 occasions where you fought more than one ghost at a time. This one, you're up against multiple ghosts a lot more often. This just shows how polished the combat is. Not saying the combat in the first wasn't executed well, because it's really well done, but here they tweaked it to perfection. One thing I noticed in this game is you can avoid a lot more encounters than in the first, which is a big thumbs up overall. In terms of speedrunning, this makes my life so much easier. Overall, the combat is super fun and addicting. It's like Resident Evil 4, but actually scary. On the other hand, I found the game much less challenging than the first. I think, in total, I died 3 times beating the game 3 times. The only part that really seriously pissed me off was the entire last segment on Fatal, in which you fight 3 separate bosses and a total of 9 extra ghosts. The same problem plagued the first game. Fatal wasn't really any harder than Nightmare until the very last fucking second when they decide, fuck you, and everything one-shots you, and the nearest save is over a half hour ago. Jesus Christ! The frustration is real, but overall, the game is pretty easy. The ghosts just aren't aggressive enough. Speaking of ghosts, let's talk about them as a whole. Again, they impress me with the ghosts. Just a plethora of ghosts, all with their own unique attack and movement sets. Now, I feel as if I ran into the same ghosts a bit more often than I did in the first one, but seeing as this one is so much bigger than the first, I can excuse it. Now, the design is pretty good, but really, I prefer the first more though. Now, I've heard people say that the ghost design is better in 2, which honestly is a fine statement. The ghosts are really creepy. There are a few rehashed concepts like the blind ghost and the broken neck ghost, just the first that come to mind. Now, while I may prefer the ghosts of the first game, don't think the overall direction isn't good. The ghosts are still fucking awesome. There are these 2 ghosts where one is a decoy doll and the other is an actual girl. The only way to tell which one is which is how they sound, and the doll's neck goes limp instead of giving a fatal frame chance. I'd say the only problem I found is some of the ghosts are just so cowardly. I just want them to come at me, bruh. But they're just such pansies, they keep floating away. Get back here and let me take your picture! I think of the first game as a great game that sets up an incredibly strong framework, and this game just comes along and takes full advantage of it. I honestly have no real complaints with this game. Anything I find negative about it is pretty nitpicky. I'm pretty sure this is the general fan favorite, and hell, it's mine too. And what sets it apart from the rest is the story and atmosphere. So let's talk about the story. Holy shit. This is awesome. The game takes place only a couple years after the first. There are some connections to the first, but really the game more or less can stand alone just fine. There are a lot of aspects to this story, much like the first. I'll try not to drone on the fine details. So, as stated before, Miyu and Mayu are in the woods visiting a place where they used to play as kids. Mayu wanders off and Miyu follows after. After discovering All God's village, they become trapped since, oh no, more rituals and curses. Much like the first plot, it revolves heavily around rituals, curses, and sacrifice. Through the course of the game, we learn about these wacky rituals they do where they sacrifice twins in order to appease this giant void underneath the village called the Hellish Abyss. See, how all this works is the selected twins are kept in two mirrored houses to become purified. On the day of the ritual, they're brought to this hellish abyss, and the eldest twin is forced to strangle the weaker younger twin. The body is tossed into the void, and the other surviving twin is left to guard over the village. Again, the most recent ritual fails for the second time. The two twins, Yai and Sai, were the ones to be sacrificed. Instead of going through with it, Yai and Sai attempt to break free from the village. Unfortunately, Sai ends up being captured. With the other twin out of the picture, in an already previously failed attempt prior, the village is at a standstill. They decide to proceed anyway and substitute the folklorist whose notes we've encountered. Well, the Hellish Abyss don't like that. So literally, all hell breaks loose. The malice erupts from the void and shrouds the village in darkness, completely erasing it from the world. The folklorist, Sahiro Makabe, becomes transformed by the malice into this evil entity referred to as the Kusabi, and attacks the village. Since Yai and Sai's spirits never conjoined, Sai too haunts the town. So with the mechanics of the ritual out of the way, we can finally begin to focus on Miyu and Mayu. Through the course of the game, Mayu slowly becomes more possessed by Sai's spirit, causing her to relive her final hours, which leads her to attempt the ritual once again. Miyu meets another boy who is another surviving twin who aids you through your journey and helps you attempt to rescue your sister. Right before escaping, Mayu is captured by the spirits and is brought to the Hellish Abyss. Now, the game has a total of 4 endings. The first ending is just deciding to leave Mayu behind. Hey, listen, I love you and everything, but see ya. This ending actually leads to a game over, but I still consider it an ending. So if you play the game like you're supposed to, you're open to 3 endings. So on easy or normal for the PS2 and normal and hard for the Xbox, you get the Crimson Butterfly ending, which is canon. Mayu tells you the only way to escape is by finishing the ritual again. Miyu strangles her and Mayu becomes a Crimson Butterfly. God damn it, Tecmo. Seriously, this ending is really rough to watch. If you beat the game on Hard or Nightmare for PS2, or Fatal Mode on the Xbox, you get the Hellish Abyss ending where Mayu climbs out of the void and they both mysteriously awake in the woods. Mayu has been blinded by the malice, and the two sisters walk off into the distance. Lastly, there's an Xbox exclusive ending by beating the game on Nightmare. Mayu and Sai form one, Yai is spawned from Miyu, and the two go to complete the ritual. Miyu quickly pulls Mayu from Sai, saving her. With the ritual finally completed, the darkness is removed from the village and everyone is put to rest. Miyu and Mayu are seen walking off into the horizon. Also, this song is fucking awesome. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is my favorite ending. After beating the game, you get a rank, unlock costumes, a battle minigame, and now there's a store you can buy items for New Game Plus. So as you can see, the plot's pretty similar to the first in a good amount of ways, but there's just so much more here. Seriously, it's really well done. I could do an entire video on it. That's how good it is. I couldn't do it justice without spending an inordinate amount of time on it. Just go play it. But first, you want to know which version, right? For sure. There are two versions of the game, the standard PS2 version and the Director's Cut Xbox version. In terms of content, the Director's Cut version naturally has extra features, more costumes, an extra game type called Survival in which you survive. Also, you get this really awesome first person mode. This is rad and really makes the game feel completely different. The controls are a bit quirky, but really, this is just so good in its own right, I really don't have many complaints. In this mode, your camera frame gets an update and looks good. The only thing I can say is the frame rate is a lot less stable in this mode. It also kind of shows things not meant to be seen, where draw distance and fog kind of pop in occasionally. For some reason, they added this button prompt telling you when to pick stuff up. Why did they add this? We managed to get through the game just fine without these. It's kind of like, here, infinite blue enough to catch your attention. So graphically, the Xbox beats out the PS2 much more noticeably here. Again, 40p on the Xbox with better textures. The most noticeable thing for me is the lighting. Xbox lighting is just so much better. The PS2 has this weird thing that I always notice where the light starts and has a very jagged look to it. The only reason I'd consider the PS2 version is 1, Fatal Frame 3 is PS2 only, which makes having them collective-wise work better, and 2, the controls are a little better. Having 2 extra triggers versus the fucking disgusting black and white buttons makes using the quick look so much better than holding X. Ugh. Overall, I'd just go Xbox for all the extras and graphical updates. The controls aren't bad by any means, just not as good as the PS2. Really, either version would be good, but the Xbox version is the best version.
What we have here is one of the finest games in survival horror. It's such a well-crafted game, it's impressive. The level of detail in every department is insane. The game is just immaculate. This is a must-play for everyone. It's nearly a flawless game with only a few issues in terms of control. And what's weird to me is this one doesn't seem to have the fan base like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. When it comes to big name survival horror games, this one seems to be the most ignored. And what a shame, since it's such an amazing series. But I could be wrong. Leave a comment, let me know, tell me how you feel about this series, because I feel as if I know the least about how others feel about this game. So, next time, we get to what I'd consider the best in the series. Not my favorite. In terms of overall gameplay, graphics, and other stuff, the best. There's a difference. One's better to play, one I'd rather play.
Did I hear you say something about little girls?